Morning. It is Courtney.
Good morning, Courtney.
Hi.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I call this meeting to order. Today is Friday, February 21st, 2025. This is the Legislative Committee for the Colorado Forest Health Council, and I'm Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally, chair of this committee. And let's go ahead and do roll call, if you wouldn't mind, Roberta.
Sure thing. Katie McGrath Novak. Pat Dorsey.
Present.
Christina Burry.
Morning.
We have Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally. Mark Morgan.
Present.
Julie Stencil.
Good morning.
Commissioner Veronica Medina.
Good morning.
Allison Lurch.
Good morning, everyone.
And Samantha Alpert.
Morning, all.
We definitely.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's great to have you all here. Happy snowy Friday. And so we're going to move on to we're going to put our minutes off to the next meeting. But today we're going to start off with our 2026 legislative recommendations and look at the updated language from our Forest Health Council meeting that was on February 6th. And I'm assuming, Allison, you're sharing that?
Yeah, I'm having a little bit slower internet this morning. So Roberta, I'm wondering if you could share screen for me.
Yes, I'm pulling up the 2026 recommendations. Are you seeing my screen?
We are now.
Yes.
We are. So, and Commissioner, maybe we can both tag team this. I see Katie McGrath Novak is on. Good morning, Katie. I'm happy you're here.
Good morning.
So one thing's first, if you go down to recommendation to Roberta and just to go over the Good Neighbor Authority, if you were all,
Can we just have Roberta do on her sheet, make it a little bit larger? I think it's at 125%, but if we could just do just a hair large, that perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So just first things first, if we remember at our full council meeting on the 6th, there was discussion over recommendation 2 or question of whether the funding that's in bullets was all-time state funding or annual funding. And at the time during the meeting, it was discussed that we thought it was an annual allocation for GNA for all of these 4 states, but actually it is not. Those were all-time funding sources. And so during the meeting, it was recommended to change it from all-time to annual. However, we have changed it back to the all-time funding to reflect actually what we had from the beginning. So that was one major change that we thought had to happen. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I just want to take full responsibility for that mistake. My sincere apologies. We did, actually, Everett, our GNA specialist, did, as of yesterday, give us an annual breakdown for those states, including Colorado. So Allie, I can send that to you to send out to the group if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, just want to apologize for that mistake on my part. And we do have the annualized numbers now. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Christina. Okay, Allison, what's the next point we wanted to, is that the only one, or do we want to, is there another one? I think there was one more, right?
I thought there was one more, but I'm trying to pull up the previous change. Courtney, I know that you've been gone for a bit, but do you happen to remember the second change that was made during the meeting off the top of your head?
Oh, that was made during the meeting?
Yeah.
I can open up the document. I can't recall off the top of my head either, but yeah, I can open the notes.
Okay, well, we can come back to that. But I appreciate you clarifying that and we got that language correct, but it still shows the disparities between the states. And I think it's good information to point out. So, because the states might be needing to rely more on funding, local funding to going forward. So, okay. I think that was it for just addressing that to make sure that we had clarified that. So thank you, Allison, for that. So now we'll move on to, and then Courtney, if you do find it, or someone kind of like me, like in the middle mid-sentence, also like, oh, that's what it was. Just raise your hand, let me know, and we'll go back to item number 2. So let's talk about the presentation, or I'm sorry.
I just said that sounds great. I'm looking for it right now, and I'll definitely raise my hand and put it in the chat.
Yep, no, that would be great. And no worries. Thank you, Courtney. So let's talk, have a little presentation, well, not really presentation, but a discussion following up on the questions from the last meeting and updates on the current legislation for the legislative status on House Bill 25-1078 and House Bill 25-007. I did testify in both hearings. It went very well. They didn't have a lot of questions for the Forest Health Council. Director McCombs came and testified on the House Bill, the 1078, the workforce bill. He did a phenomenal job. And CSU sent their attorney to talk about some of the parameters with that. And then House Bill 007, the Nature Conservancies and others came, and that was a lot of testimony there. And I believe both have passed out of the committees, and we'll just have to, with amendments, we'll have to just see what happens going forward. As you all know, the Joint Budget Committee came out with a pretty strong and dire message about the budget and the funding going forward. And so I was at an event with a lot of conservation folks last night, including the Nature Conservancies on the line here. And we certainly, everyone thinks they're great bills and they're really good information. I talked to a couple of the bill sponsors, and it's just, we'll have to see. The realities are the budgets and the state budget is not looking wonderful. I'll just be positive at this point. So, Courtney, it looks like any changes was changing acronyms to full names and recognition in 2.2. Okay, so we'll just change those in 2.2. That's a good catch. So, Allison, I don't see, is James here?
Yep, James is here.
Oh, there you are, James. Would you like to add on to that, James?
Just a few things. So like the commissioner said, 1078 and 007 both did pass. They both have some appropriations clauses. And so they are going to be sitting in the appropriations committees until we have a budget decided. I think it's important to note for this team that on Senate Bill 7, it was an original appropriation of $1 million in order to maybe give it a bit more of a chance to get out of the General Assembly. They did take that down to just be $250,000, which I still think the Joint Budget Committee is going to say is a bit too high. But it is a step in the right direction for getting the bill passed out. Also noting with 1078, the reason that CSU was that they sent their attorney to kind of testify not in support, not against, but more so as questions only, was there was an amendment added, which is basically trying to create the workforce internship program in extension, but without providing any dollars to it. They're trying to say, CSU, if you want to do this immediately, you can try to get gifts, grants, and donations to fund this program. Otherwise, this program is just not funded, it is created. And if dollars become available this year or any out years, then the General Assembly, should they see fit, can appropriate dollars to that grant program. I think that gives pause to CSU in the sense that they don't want to have a program that's created, and then if somebody starts like asking about it and they say we can't really do anything since it's not funded. And I think the other thing to note specifically on 1078 is that the committee did have a really lengthy discussion about setting up this new precedent of creating program and statute that isn't funded and hopes of funding into the future. And so I think that's the only thing that I'd add on those two bills. I think it's important for this group to know too, that another bill that isn't really dealing with this group, but is dealing with forest health in general, is Senate Bill 11. Senate Bill 11 is an advanced detection AI camera bill. The reason I wanted to bring this one up was originally this bill was funded using the unused property tax fund. And the governor's office does not like that funding source. And so sponsors were tasked with finding a new funding source. Unfortunately, the path that the sponsors took forward, which has been made clear by the governor's office, by DNR, and by the CSFS too, the path that they put forward is by putting this new AI camera advanced detection program within the Colorado State Forest Service Incentives for Local Governments grant program. For a whole host of reasons, that just does not work for the State Forest Service. And so that bill actually there was no formal vote in committee. They laid it over for sponsors to maybe work on more amendments before they take it back to a vote this coming Monday, the 24th. I think those are the only three bills that I think I wanted to touch base here. But yeah, Commissioner, I think you're right in that the Joint Budget Committee has some work to do.
Yeah, and I'll add on, James, thanks for bringing up Senate Bill 11 because counties have taken, well, at least one county organization has taken a oppose or amend position for a lot of reasons, because they're worried about where the funding's coming from, but because then it's competing dollars. And they also share the same concerns you just shared, but it's also the way the bill is written, it's only one AI company and they have kind of exclusive and there's 2 or 3 bills right now that have where one company gets like all of the state business, or they're in statute that you can only use this app or this person or this company. So that gives us a lot of pause. And so there's some pushback on that. And also there's little privacy concerns with that AI camera because they won't really disclose who they're going to sell it to. So I've been bringing up, can we put some parameters that can only really share it with firefighters, and the language there needed to be tweaked. So it's emergency services, Office of Emergency Management, and not just firefighters. There's just a lot of little tweaks. And I do know it was laid over because they were worried it wasn't going to get out of committee. And so it's what I've heard from the folks in the hallway. So we'll just see what happens. But I think detection is something that has worked here, but we have to make sure it's doing it right. And there's a couple other bills that we've taken with just having one company. I just think that gives a lot of this pause. So just to share that, not to be political, it's just the fact that's kind of what the other concerns were. Thanks, James. And James, can you just share a little bit about the picture, because we know the 2026 recommendations that we have just discussed. Can you just share a little bit of, I think there's a little bit of a not rosy picture for the next year for the budget forecast or things on the horizon. Can you just kind of share that with the committee as well?
Absolutely. I mean, not much else to share. So basically what we're looking at is still not really deficits, because Colorado constitutionally has to have a balanced budget. But the problem is with Tabor, we can only take in so much revenue before it's returned to the taxpayers. And that's the position we find ourselves in, is that we've got the money to spend, but the governor has really just allocated so much of it into some of the programs that he likes that the legislature doesn't have a lot of money to spend in legislation. We're going to come up to our quarterly forecast that there's two different forecasts that happen. The first is by the nonpartisan arm of the General Assembly, which is the Legislative Council. They have their own economists. And then the second one is kind of partisan because it's housed within the governor's office, the Office of State Planning and Budget, OSPB. We have both of those quarterly forecasts coming up here at around the end of February, beginning of March. And that last forecast is what we use to actually create this state budget. And they do out years. So we'll have some more information about what kind of budget scenario we're going to be in, a more clear picture here in the next couple weeks. But I think the short and easy answer is that we're going to see the same challenges that we're experiencing this year into the next fiscal year as well.
Thank you, James. That's what I was hoping you would share. So I didn't want to be the doom and gloom for all of it. So thanks for sharing that with me. So any questions from members of the committee? I think the positive here is that they both made out a committee because people think these are important. And that's what I heard loud and clear, that people recognize, even last night said, we recognize that wildfire mitigation work is crucial and important. And these were good bills. It's just, especially, a lot of them like 1078 is what they told me. They thought it's just the way we're trying to wedge it in there is with no money, it's giving everybody a little pause. But everyone really liked the concept in the bills. So I just wanted to share that. I also want to share, I was at the Warner College Student Council networking Monday or Tuesday, and heard a lot of good positive feedback from some of those students and from some of the academia about Senate Bill 5 and some of the things happening Front Range Community College and the things that they see happening around that. And there was a lot of positive comments on that, and some of those students starting to really pay attention to the Forest Health Council and some of the things that are happening. So I just wanted to share that with you all, that they were, that was on a lot of people's, not the freshmen, they're learning, but a lot of the other folks. And I thought that was a really nice positive thing to share with you all today too. So sure, no one has any questions. It's sure a lot of fun to go down there or testify right now. So everyone's pretty stressed out, but
Thanks for having me, everybody. Thanks, Commissioner.
yeah, have a great day. Happy Friday.
Yes, bye-bye.
All right. So with that, this might end up being a quick meeting today. With that, anybody have anything to talk about with those questions? Just want to make sure. Senate Bill 11, I think, is probably going to get heavily amended or changed or not go forward. But anybody, any other conversations, discussions, or the insurance bill? We should talk about the insurance bill, the wildfire insurance bill. That's a big one. So maybe we can bring that up next time, because that's kind of a nexus as well. Okay. With that, let's move on to the other thing that came out of our full Forest Health Council. Is we're going to have a little bit of discussion about this education event that we are looking to do at the next session. Actually, I was supposed to be at a networking event, education event this morning at 7:30, but that got moved back because this General Assembly had a late start at 10 a.m. today, and I couldn't chair this meeting and also be having breakfast burritos at the Capitol this morning. So so I just wanted to share that, both things are happening. And so I think it's good to know that a lot of folks do these. So we want to make sure we plan and do this very well. So I think first I wanted to talk with Allison and have us share this conversation, because she's talked with the Attorney General's office about the lanes we have to stay in and how we can do this, and also sponsorships and who really we got to be careful who is actually doing the planning and also how it kind of goes forward and what really, I think, what the lane and the purpose is going forward. And so, Allison, you want to start with that, or would you like me to continue with that part of the discussion?
I'd love to start because I have some updated information from what we received for our quarterly council meeting on the 6th. And so essentially, I'm not walking back what we got from the AG's office as far as what I said at the meeting, but we ran that information by Director Dan Gibbs and our Deputy Policy Director, Kelly Romero Heaney, and a few others. And essentially, what we have all come up with our information is that DNR employees can be a part of this. But as you say, Commissioner, we just have to be careful of how we share and what we share. So if it purely is an education and awareness opportunity for the Colorado Forest Health Council and that the state is not paying for the breakfast, then we can be there as well. So that's some updated information, and it was really exciting to hear that because I think we would like to participate and be there, and so would Director Gibbs. He is excited about this opportunity that we have. So that is my latest on that.
Great. Thank you, Allison. So with that, we want to kind of really have the Forest Health Council via the legislative committee, because kind of start with these steps and lead this. And certainly anybody from the Forest Health Council can join on and volunteer and help with this. So Allison says we have possibly one or two folks offline who are willing to help pay for the breakfast burritos or whatever. That's what they're having today, is breakfast burritos. And the other one was, Danish and donuts, but though I've been to 3 so far, that it's an opportunity to do this. And so we know we have a lot of outside agencies who are looking to maybe be a part of planning and helping be a part of this, but we felt that since it's coming from the Forest Health Council, that maybe it needed to have just the narrow, have one group organizing it, so it's coming purely from the Forest Health Council and showing some of the work that we have done, but also the work that the state legislature, like passing money for furworm and co-swap and all that, the positive outcomes from that. And then making sure how we tell that story, and maybe start off with very simple and focused, but well done event this year, and then learn and see if we want to expand in years forward. Would you like to add on to that, Allison?
I think you really covered it. I think some of our next steps are to identify, hopefully our schedules are flexible enough that we can find a time and a day that we can all, or the majority of us, will be able to make it there. I'm looking at others in the room like Commissioner Medina and Pat Dorsey, who live quite far away from the Front Range. And so, right, we understand that. I mean, I live closer than you. I also don't live on the Front Range. So, when can we all figure a time that we can get there and possibly and definitely have, I think for me, Commissioner, I just want to see if we can have Dan Gibbs there and to be, a part of this. And his schedule will be the hardest out of all of us, unfortunately. And so I'm just willing to work with his executive assistant and anything we can do to find a time that we can be there together. And then, of course, whoever is going to sponsor the breakfast and all of that, how we work through that is still a little unknown.
So Samantha, your hand's raised. I was going to comment. That's where we need to start first, is find the time where everyone, including I think Director McCombs as well, Christina, you and Director McCombs, and maybe even Mr. Morgan from the Fire Commission. But Samantha.
Yes.
Oh, sorry,
Can
Mr.
I
Morgan. I'll come to you in just a second. Can I do Samantha first, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Morgan?
You bet.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, thanks for those updates. Out of curiosity, Ali, I remember you said, you're looking into sponsorships, obviously, but are there certain rules for private sponsorships? I was just curious if, like, we know anyone in our networks who we send them to just to find funding for this, but I was curious if there were any barriers to that.
I can send the language that we have. I'll drop it in the chat from the AG's office.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, the Colorado Timber Industry Association would have an interest in this and would be interested in possibly being part of the sponsorship. And we, in the past, had a legislative reception that we always held, and we're looking at restructuring that. And that's always been mostly an educational event to try to reach out to legislators. And a format like this, there was a fair amount of interest. I could take it back, and or you could work with Megan Marshall. I mentioned this to her, or Maxwell, excuse me, Megan Maxwell, who is our executive director for Colorado. And there's definitely an interest in this. And we just like to be as positive as possible and be interested in participating in it. So.
Great. Thank you. And I think Allison had shared that you had shared that interest as well. I see some folks talking about March 13th and May 7th. I don't think there's any logistic way that we can get everyone's schedules ready for March 13th and 14th. And I know that's not a date. I'm already booked all the way into October, and March 13th, 14th, I'm fairly booked. And also I think the spaces right now, a lot of the capital for where we would need to do this is already fairly, like I said, there's one this morning and this afternoon. Yesterday was Gifted and Talented Students Day at the Capitol. So an extra 500 students were hanging out with legislators in the hallways and walking around. It was very crowded. I used to organize that event for 2 years in a row, so I know how chaotic that is. So there's a lot of things already planned. So there's really no way we can do this in March. So we're going to have to really look at January, is what I'm hoping that we can get in front of them in January for next year. And so I think this is such an event, we'd have to do this and plan, especially if we're trying to make sure Director Gibbs and Director McCombs can be there. I mean, I think and I know Director Gibbs was in Washington testifying in front of Congress. So maybe at the end, Allison, would you mind sharing a couple of those updates as well? Because I was just reading about that. Congressman Neguse was in my office a couple of days ago. And so I just wanted to give an opportunity for that. So Katie, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. It sounds like, yeah, the focused approach makes sense. I kind of wanted to ask about what Mr. Morgan was saying. So I had reached out to Allison and Commissioner Shattuck McNally with an idea where several of the networks in the state that work with some of the more community-based organizations, we've been talking for a couple years about doing like some sort of a Capitol Day, and it just hasn't come together yet. And so we had the idea that maybe we could do like a unified Forest Day or something at the Capitol, which if this needs to be more focused, that makes sense. But I do wonder about, like, Mr. Morgan, you were talking about some sort of a reception that maybe could be open more broadly or something. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can get some of, like, we all represent these broad communities, and is there a way that we can present a really unified voice with some of the people that we actually represent? I just think more voices from the ground level, from all of our different perspectives, would be really powerful. And if there would be a way to do that, I think something like that could be really cool.
Well,
yeah, and I hear, I'm certainly, I know Alice and I both hear you, Katie, and there are a lot of voices and there are a lot of communities that want to look at that. And that, as Mr. Morgan says, you can do a legislative reception off-site right across the streets and something. And so if you all wanted to look at planning something off-site for right after the session closes, for them to come over and grab a couple of hors d'oeuvres or something and have even offsite even more of a chance to have a unified voice. I think that's an opportunity to do a 1-2, I want to say punch, 1-2 dose of education and united stuff. But I think first we should start off, there's lots of great ideas and lots of important voices and lots of folks who would love to have this opportunity to share why this is so important. There's lots of wonderful voices. So let's start. I think what we first have to do is talk to, find out how we reserve the space, because we have to, because already probably a party of people are grabbing the spaces for next year. Look at the calendars of Director Gibbs and other folks, and maybe even seeing the governor can come by, since we report both to the governor and to the General Assembly, and have those key folks and look at, see if we can get a date on the calendar and see if that date's available. And because I think at either first floor would be able to have, sometimes they do it on the balcony outside the chambers and it gets really tight, and a lot of the other lobbyists and advocates are out in the hallways. It gets really crowded, but downstairs, I think it's a little more space. So I think they're starting to do that more downstairs. So I think I think that would be the first step. And then we can look at what is the scope and the agenda, or the things we'd like to do, which I think we have to show with them the good news. Like, you funded these things the last few years and they worked and they saved houses and they saved lives, and kind of that piece. And then the cost of, not doing anything. I think there's some things with that. And then also, we can always share all the folks that are, part of the council, and all the folks that are partnering with us, and make sure they understand this is a very large coalition and all the voices. And then if there's something that needs to be larger, more expansive, like I said last night, it was just literally a block and a half across the street. They rented a room and it was a lot more. It was very really crowded. There's an opportunity for other groups to maybe look at something even larger if they'd like to do that outside. Commissioner Medina.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So I hear you, but it sounds like we're talking about next year. Are we not trying to do something this year?
I don't think we've ever, I think right off the bat, we had talked about logistically staff capacity and just scheduling. It's really would be a monumental lift to try to do anything this year. It's just really going to be really hard to do that. And with the budget talks and kind of the things happening in the hallways, it's maybe to do this well and to do it with the right messaging and printing off kind of storyboards I'm envisioning and things like that. It has to be it's going to take probably a few months to get this plan. And if I agree with Allison having Director Gibbs there and others, I don't think their schedules, trying to look at their schedules in the next 2 weeks, trying to find a date, it would be very, very hard to pull that all together in the next month or so.
Well, Allison put it in the comment, we were thinking about doing it this year. I mean, I just think this year is crucial. I get that we may not have the storyboards and, all of the bells and whistles that we may want, but I feel like with all the cuts that are happening, everything that is happening, with the budgets, I think we need to be present and tell our story now before more funding is cut, and just show the impact that we have been able to do in the past with these programs, and why the continued funding moving forward is so essential. I think next year will be great, but at that point, I think we may have missed the bus, and some of that funding may have already be gone. And once it's gone, it's really hard to get back. So that's just my 2 cents. I know it may not be, again, all the bells and whistles that everybody's thinking about, but I think something is better than nothing.
Allison.
And my comment in the chat was mostly directed from Director Gibbs. When I brought this up to him, he was really kind of excited to get to the Capitol as well. But he can be very excited and interested in doing something, but it still might be hard to find time for him. But I'm happy to at least explore if there was a smaller type event that we wanted to put on at the Capitol this year to share voices, and then build towards a much larger and more coordinated effort in the future as well. I think Commissioner, I think Dan is poised to share.
Right. And I think if we did something smaller where, and this just happened with some other folks, but they all had an 8-hour day. They hung out at the Capitol all day because the Capitol was so busy. They, hardly any legislators came out. And this was emergency services, which has got a huge lobby. And they had hardly anyone come out, even though they had a big thing planned. And so I think it really happened the timing wise, but I think if we had, but then we might be going down and lobbying, which we can't do unless we're doing education. So that's really what also we have to kind of thread this needle that we have to stay in the education piece and not actually the lobbying piece. And when we talk about budgets and funding, the JBC's already met. And I think, that right now what they're doing, the budgets and the discussions are already pretty much, the mix is done. And now we're just waiting for the cake to be put in the oven to bake. So I hear you. I would love to do it this year too. I was all like, let's go, right? Because I've been down there and I saw you with our other opportunity with when we were down there as commissioners. And certainly I was talking about all the things and how important this is. I even talked about it last night. So I think it's really important to talk about all of these things and see what we can do. But we have to make sure we understand it's got to be education and not down being any kind of lobbying kind of work, if that makes sense. So I hope I said that correctly, Allison. I think we have to stay in that lane for education pieces. But Pat.
Yeah, I was just going to offer, if we did want to try to pull together a smaller event, some of the groups that I belong to have been really successful holding things outside the Capitol, like on the Capitol steps and having hot dogs for lunch. And it would be an opportunity, depending on what our goal was. You could have, firefighters there and a Ponzi simulator, not a stimulator, a simulator where they could actually, skid a log off of a mountainside or something like that in a virtual format. I just think there's an opportunity there, but if there's not, there's not. And I'm okay whatever way the group decides.
Could
Great, Pat, and
I
appreciate
jump
that.
in here?
Yes, Mr. Morgan.
Yes. CTIA is very interested in this, and they're very interested from the educational standpoint. This doesn't have to be a lobbying effort. We've been pursuing this. We were looking into it, and we kind of decided that this is not set in stone, but that we would drop back and try to do a really quality event next year. We had, in the past, we had a very successful legislative reception, and we always held it at the City Grill. And it was primarily an educational event, and the Federal Forest Service, State Forest Service industry, it was always real well attended. And City Grill had their fire, and we looked for a new site, and quite frankly, we tried it a couple of years, and I think it was basically a poor effort and a disaster. The new site was too far from the Capitol. And so we tasked Megan Maxwell this year to try to find a better site where it would be more accessible to the legislators. And she's been looking into this quite a bit. And I believe there was a Colorado History Center.
Yeah, that's where it was last
events
night.
like this.
Yeah, I was there last
That was
night.
what?
I was there last
Yeah.
night at the History Center.
Well, and that was one of her recommendations. She's been working with some of the other people and groups, but we felt that we couldn't put it on there this year. And so we basically punted and said, we'll be the Broncos and we'll get them next year. But we're very interested in it, and it's very much, and it is from an educational side. We feel that if we can educate the legislators to the logistics and the size of the problem and possible solutions, that I don't think it needs to be a lobbying effort. I think it's lobbying for education. If we let them understand the problems, then we have faith that they will make good decisions. So CTI is still very much interested in this, and I would recommend anybody that's going forward with this, contact Megan Maxwell, and I can provide that for you. But we've been working on this. We want to come back with a newer, better, broader effort. And there is some limited sponsorship funding available for that. So
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
that's what I know.
appreciate that. Thank you. Courtney?
Good morning. Yeah, I certainly feel open to supporting the committee in whichever direction they want to go. Since I've never been a part of one of these education days at the Capitol, maybe it could also be helpful, if staff are going to be the ones organizing this, me or Allison, Roberta, it could also be helpful for us to talk to some people who have organized these events in the past to understand who we talk to and what are some of the steps in making this happen. Thinking that I'm trying to remember the session ends. I think
May
we maybe
7th.
said it. When does it end?
May 7th.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I think that was in the-
that last week and a half, it is absolutely. And there's already talk about special sessions coming up. So it's going to be I think we need to avoid May, quite frankly. I would be my strong recommendation. So.
Yeah. So maybe there can be some more. It sounds like Mark and Jody and some other people have contacts for people who've organized these events before. And it sounds like finding a location is a really important part. So if anyone has contacts for folks who've organized these, and Jody, maybe you've been a part of that, maybe you could email those to Allison, Roberta, and I, so we can also do a little bit more sort of reconnaissance and logistics research.
Yeah. There's lots of opportunities here, but I think the point being first is, I think that this could really balloon into a very big all day of thing I don't think we can do all this in 1 hour for a breakfast. If the other things that Mr. Morgan and others are talking about probably need to be on an off-site opportunity to provide the space for all of the folks who want to be there, because there is not that kind of space at the Capitol, where this is kind of where the original idea was, just to have something as they're walking in outside the chambers that they can stop by and grab a breakfast burrito and learn before they walk into chambers. The other ideas are fantastic, but I think we'd have to look at the off-site option, as Mr. Morgan has been sharing, and those options are limited and they're booked. As you know, there was 3 major events last night in Denver. Colorado Municipal League, Conservation Colorado, and other groups were all meeting last night. And so people were going from event to event to event to talk to folks. And so, and those were education events as well, and forums, legislative forums. So I think that there's certain things that we can, those people we can that plan those things and how they got those spaces, and how, like the commissioners group is down there right now, and how they got that organized and how they do that every year, because they do it every year, to get that space and to talk to folks and get the invitations out. So I think that, but I think the breakfast and the education piece could start in the morning where they're walking off, and then having something off site would be bigger. But then I still think, Allison, if it's going to be off site, we'd have to clarify what DNR, how much can you all be involved if it's an off-site thing? Because what I think the other ideas are a little bit off the original intent, and they're really great ideas, but I think then we have to find out the lane that DNR staff can be involved with something like that. And that would have to be another separate organization, or an organizing committee without maybe DNR staff included. Would that be, am I correct on that?
I believe you're correct on that, Commissioner. And I'd want to run this, what we've run by our AGs and Dan and Kelly so far is that sort of smaller breakfast focused event, not necessarily the bigger event. So if it's okay, can I do some research with our team and come back at our next meeting, or in between with an email?
Yeah, how about we just bring it back in the next meeting, and so that everyone can get the same information at the same time. And then can we also start looking at schedules for at least for January, and also so we can kind of at least start planning, because it might, believe it or not, people's schedules are pretty, if we can get ahead for even Pat and Commissioner Medina and everyone who would like to be there, I want to make sure we give everyone plenty of notice to kind of schedule so they can plan to be down here and be in present. Also, I think just trying to get that piece and start from the high level, and then we can work down on the different ideas. And so let's stay kind of looking at the breakfast piece, the educational piece, and then we'll get more direction on this offsite and bringing all these other opportunities. I agree with you, Mr. Morgan. Was some really probably great things about the Forest Service and the timber industry and everyone working together and showing all the positives and the relationships and the importance of all that. I think it's a great idea. And looking at the History Museum, it was a really full crowd last night. So I think it's a great space, just to let you know. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here. We just have to be, I would love to go down tomorrow or on Monday and Tuesday and do this, but I think we have to be very careful about doing right. But I want to reassure everyone, DNR, other groups and I know James and Daphne, everyone's down there talking about the importance of all these things on a daily basis and the relationships. And I just want to make sure it's not like there's nothing happening right now. There's lots of stuff happening. And so I just want to make sure to remind everyone that we're doing some of that's really happening too. So does that sound like a good plan to come back kind of with, we'll meet in 2 weeks and have some more ideas. And Mr. Morgan, if you want to send your contacts to Courtney and Allison.
Okay.
We'll still remind
Thank you.
everyone.
I have to jump off to make my next meeting here, but I
Sounds
would be
great,
happy
Mr.
to do
Morgan.
that. Thank you.
Sir.
Bye.
And that's just to remind everyone, just for open meetings, we have to, just so we don't look like we're communicating, to send information like that to Courtney and Allison, or probably just to Courtney, right, and Allison, so that it keeps us out of that gray area. So, okay. I know everyone, we all want to go in there and talk about all this and the importance, and certainly I'm with you. I'm really with you. I would love to do it tomorrow or today, but they're starting a late start. Maybe we could talk to them and have a whole hour, come have a nice leisurely breakfast before they go in at 10, but someone else already has that space. Any other thoughts on this? If you are interested in being on either, sounds like there might end up being 2 different kinds or 3 different kinds of folks of opportunities or events. And as we get some more clarification about what lane is for which one, if you'd like to be interested in any of that, if you could just email Courtney your interest in participating in any fashion at all, whether helping in any capacity with this, if you could let Courtney know, and then we can start making sure those who want to be in part of planning and stuff, because it will need many hands. Will make light work, and this will be a lot of work to do. So with that, I see you, Katie. I hear you, me. So with that, any other, Allison, I wanted you to share with Director Gibbs testifying in Washington, D.C. Was it this week? Last week.
It was last week. Yeah, just got a little blurb to share with you all, if that's okay. Yeah, so last week, Director Gibbs was in DC to help share the state's priorities for moving bipartisan natural resource management and conservation solutions forward. As part of this trip, Dan was invited to present to the House Committee on Natural Resources Federal Lands Subcommittee, and he presented on the multiple use on our public lands. He did great during his testimony. Dan highlighted the importance of balancing our growing recreation economy with the significant mineral and energy development that already occurs on our public lands in Colorado. And Dan also highlighted bipartisan opportunities to advance shared stewardship on our federal lands through management agreements like the shared stewardship agreement that we currently have in place with the U.S. Forest Service. You may remember that last year was the 5th year that we've had that agreement in place. And Frank Bem, who retired last year from Region 2, and Dan extended our shared stewardship agreement for another 10 years. And so just really highlighting these place-based agreements, and then also talking about popular our recreation destinations like Pikes Peak and Arkansas River Headwaters. So it was really wonderful that that Director Gibbs could be there last week.
A lot of pictures. It's really exciting stuff to see. I'm glad you could showcase some of the things about the work that we in Colorado. So I express my gratitude to him. I think it's wonderful. I did have someone kind of ask a question about Bill 251182. That's the insurance thing I had mentioned earlier. This is a conversation that myself and some other commissioners have been talking with Senator Lisa Cutter and also with the insurance commissioner for the state of Colorado, Commissioner Conway, because I'm sure Commissioner Medina has similar circumstances in her community where folks are getting notices that either their insurance rates have gone up like mine. Mine went up $2,000 last year in one swoop, or they're losing coverage. And I know some of you on this call might be experiencing some of those things happening in their neighborhoods. We're hearing this more and more, and I've heard it from areas around just west of Fort Collins, Estes Park, Pinewood Springs. There's a lot happening, and it's kind of unfortunate for those homeowners because it kind of comes out of the blue. So this bill has bipartisan support and on the bill, and it's called the Risk Model Use in Property Insurance Policies. And it is concerning tools to assess the risk for the purpose of underwriting property insurance policies. And so it's the bill requires insurers who use wildfire risk models, a catastrophe model, and a combination of models or a scoring method to adhere to specific recommendations that the concern of sharing information with and requirements that of sharing information with the Commissioner of Insurance, the public, and the inclusion of specific activities in the models and providing notices to policyholders. And the specific activities in the models is the wildfire mitigation or the home hardening. And so that bill has a lot of support. I know we've had some meetings just recently, last 2 weeks, with the insurance commissioner came and met with commissioners and counties acting together. I believe he's been at CCI as well and sharing what this bill does. And it's gained a lot of momentum and support from like county commissioners. I think also Municipal League is very much in support of this. And so this is trying to help bring down the costs and help people hang on to coverage and kind of tackle the insurance crisis that we're seeing from homeowners. A lot of this is also driven by hail, as you know. It's not all wildfire, but it's also driven by hail. And there's a lot of discussion with this. And this is a big lift. And so there's a lot of energy and work behind the scenes on this bill. So I don't have, that's all I have really on it. It is something that, like I said, we started talking about it last year when the insurance commissioner was starting to hear a lot of this, and he's been looking for solutions and looking at other states who have attempted something similar and things that have not gone well and things that have gone well. Some things are learning from California and the fires from the recent fires. So there's a lot happening here, and I just hope that if you have more questions, we can always bring back more information. But that's what I was mentioned earlier was this insurance bill. And so it's another kind of piece connected to some of our work because of hopefully that if you do this, you get the certificate from your county or whatever that shows that you're doing this mitigation work, or you did this home hardening, this will help you take it to your insurance company, and they need to look at that and explain, it's a very complex bill, but it's something that is desperately needed. So I'm sure James could come back and share more if in 2 weeks. It's probably going to take a lot to get it all the way to the end, but it's really, it would say, yeah, 1182, House Bill 251182. Thank you. So with that, just wanted to make sure you knew about that bill too, because there's a lot of folks behind that working on that. And also Senator Cutter is, who used to be on this Forest Health Council, is kind of leading the way on that one. Okay, well, with that, I thought we were going to end, we're still going to be able to end early. So unless there's burning desires here, thank you all for your participation. And we'll have maybe something on paper to look at for this education thing, and some more information and more clarification on what lanes and what rules, and understand that we appreciate everyone's enthusiasm and passion to do this. I think this is going to be great and everyone's excited about it, and we'll see, maybe there is something we can try to do smaller, but it's going to be have to be very small in scope for sure. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Great. At 9:26, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
You guys.
Thanks, Roberta.